Hey guys, welcome back to another video on the Inside Spurs channel. Happy Friday morning. Hope everyone's all right, everyone's okay, and looking after themselves. In this video, we are talking about some weird old quotes coming out from Radu Drăgușin's agents. We'll be talking about that. We're going to be talking about Tyler Dibling, bit of an update surrounding him. And again, prefacing a lot of the situation surrounding transfers with the idea of, okay, well, if Ange's here, Ange's here. If it's not, then it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? So if you've been watching the last few days, you'd have known what I mean. But yeah, let's sort of jump in and discuss it. England obviously play tonight. It's the start of the Thomas Tuchel era for England. So we're looking forward to that. I'm actually really looking forward to seeing what old Tommy T has in order for us. It's Albania, so you're not going to learn too much, but as long as it's not like a typical England friendly performance, I think we'll all be happy with that. But anyway, let's jump in and talk. Morning, D's, Spurs, Sonia, Steve, Yvonne, Bazza, Hawkeye. How are we all? How are we all? Hope we're all right. Hope we're okay. Anyway, let's jump in and talk. Let's talk about what old Radu Drăgușin agents sort of said. So Florin Manea has been speaking, and he says he misses Italy. We're talking about Radu. Who knows in the future, he may even return to Serie A. It's kind of how Italy works. Even if he is currently focused on Tottenham, Napoli, they wanted him. Everyone would like to be trained by Antonio Conte. Okay. He may want to be trained by Antonio Conte. He may be an Antonio Conte style defender, maybe. I mean, Antonio Conte doesn't rely on his centre-backs to ever really try and pass a football. I think Romero was a real anomaly for him because obviously Romero can actually pass a football. But the issue is, okay, excuse me, I'm a little bit sweaty after the gym. The issue is he's done his ACL. At the very earliest that you can expect him to be fit is probably October time, realistically. Okay. If he's any earlier than October, he is a medical marvel. Even if he's October, he still probably is a bit of a medical marvel. I sort of said, look, he did it in January. I have the mindset of it can be a year's long recovery. We could be seeing him next year, let alone next season, just next year. Okay. He won't be able to pass a medical for a long time. So there's the other issue. So as much as he talks, Florin, okay, and he does, he loves a natter because people put a microphone, they go like this, they go, Florin, talk into this. And he goes, oh, I'm glad you're here. I've got a few things I want to say. He does what an agent does. And I've been really fair with it, right? I've been really, really fair with it. Let me turn that to white. There we go. It's a bit better. An agent's job is to speak up about his client. Okay, you're supposed to keep drumming up interest, keep him in the media's eye, you know, in a good way, you know, because you're going to get maybe more publicity deals. You're going to get many other things, right? My issue, though, is, and it's not Radu's fault. None of this is Radu's fault. I'm not putting this on Radu that his agent loves a bit of a chatter. I'm not putting that on him, okay? I think that'd be quite lazy to put that on Radu. Could he move off of the agent? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, the agent's doing a good job. He's keeping his client's name in a positive light in the media, especially because he's going to be out injured for a while. You know, they're asking about, you know, the second best team in Italy so far this season in Napoli, you know, and Spurs maybe aren't having the season they want. It makes too much sense. I think a lot of people are going to get bent out of shape because his agent's been talking. For me, I don't really see it like that. Don't get me wrong. I'd rather him not be talking, twerking for other clubs. I'm not denying that. But at the end of the day, if you're a professional, you know, or let's say I was a really big YouTube, you know, content creator and I had to have an agent, I'd want the agent to be talking positively about me often. Okay. That's all he's doing. So, you know, I'd want my agent to be like, hey, you know, Andy, he loves a summer fruit squash, but you know what he also loves? It's when people don't mention his ginger beard, you know. So, you know, he talks about me positively. drum me up some, some deals, and things like that. So, look, for me, I get why he's doing it. I don't personally have that issue that I think other people may have. But at the end of the day, most importantly, is Radu just needs to get fit and healthy again. He's going to be out for a while. I mean, the fact that he is in the recovery process at the time that he is, how he's actually moving is incredible. He's 2 months post the injury and a surgery, and he's in the gym working out. He's at games, moving around without any sign of any injury. It's like I don't know what his genetics are made of, but whatever they are, Captain America would be jealous. Okay, so he's still going to be out though until I would say October at the earliest. September if the medical marvel continues the way it does. But yeah, for me, try not to get bent out of shape about this one. It's what you should expect, okay? Anyway, let's move on. Morning, Jazz and Dragon. How are you both? Let's talk about old Tyler Dibling, the Southampton starlet that he is, who somewhat has fallen out a little bit. Not him personally, but I think some of the Southampton fans are sort of fallen out of favour with him when it comes to, he's rejected a contract. We know what this is all about now. Oh, he's playing for those other teams. It's like, yeah, he's not going to sign a contract with you guys when you're about to get relegated when he's got big names after him. He's just not going to, so I get why he's not signing the contract. I get why you'd be upset because obviously I'd want my startlet to sign new deals so we can make some more money out of them. But if they're not going to sign a new deal, you kind of have to, the bed has been made for you. You have to live within that now, right? So on Tyler Dibling, look, we talked about him not long ago because we talked about the right wing area. And I think a lot of you have sort of said how much you think the right wing area does need significant improvement. Okay, so bringing in a new player to play in there. Because I think by the sounds of things, a lot of us do kind of look at Kulusevski more as a central figure now. So having to add someone to the right wing position, obviously we've got a couple months left of this season. Will someone who's already at the club now really plant their flag in the turf to say, I can be that starting right winger week in, week out, and being the main guy, as much as people slag off Johnson, there's always that situation that Johnson could have an absolute almighty tear after the international break, scoring goals, beating players. We like the Forest Johnson that we bought was a really solid player, so there's that. But, on the right wing situation, obviously we talked about Semenyo, we've talked about Mbuemo, obviously Dibling. We've talked about a few different options. Obviously Matisse Tell can play out on the right. So there is still time for players at the club right now, like an Odegaard, like a Tell, to really try and take that position as their own. So that obviously can change things coming into the summer because they'll look at it and they'll go, well, you got Johnson, unless that Odegaard plays really well, right? You got Johnson, you got Odegaard. He looks really good out on that right wing, real good player. Beats players, scores goals, creates assists, whatever. You still got Johnson for it as well. Kulusevski can obviously still feature out on the right if necessary, and all those things. And then if that's the case, then you sort of look at it and go, well, then do we need a left winger now? Because I still look at Wilson Odegaard as that sort of left winger option. So if it is a case that Odegaard does sort of tear up the joint, in terms of his performances on the right wing, then it does put a question out onto the left wing. Obviously, Son's getting a bit older. Mikey is not even old enough to buy me a beer yet, or buy himself a beer. Don't have to buy me a beer. I'd probably be one buying him a beer. So on Dibling, I think there's a really good, exciting player there. He isn't my number one option. Okay, and I think there's nothing wrong with saying that you think he is your number one option for that right wing, because I do actually like him. And if it ended up he was the guy that we bought, I think people need to get out of the mindset of, oh, he's a relegated player, he's no good. He is still very young. And when we look at Lucas Bergvall and we look at Archie Gray, obviously 6 months of football, they developed like crazy. Now, the only thing I would say about buying a Dibling is the players in the attack or in the midfield around him, are they of that senior level that are going to help him? Because what I don't want to see is a situation where you look at our team and Maddison and Son are the elder statesmen. You know, Slanky's in his sort of mid to late 20s. Romero's the same. Mickey's in his early 20s. So's a doggy. Spence in his early to mid 20s. Vicario as a keeper, even though you're in your mid to late 20s, you're pretty much in like your early 20s as an outfield player. I don't want a situation where it's like, okay, so a lot of the team are 18, 19-year-olds. That's in terms of where we want to be, and we want to compete, we want to win trophies. That is not the route for me. You are, in my opinion, I could be wrong. I'm wrong about a lot of things. I can't lie. So don't take me as gospel because I am not right very often. You know, didn't think Gibbs White was the right player to buy. He turned out to be okay. Didn't think Rafinha was the right player to buy. He turns out that he's in the Ballon d'Or race. So you know what I mean? Don't take me as gospel, okay? Take me with a massive pinch of salt. My only concern is you're starting to really depend on 18, 19-year-olds, okay? And I have no issues with the idea of, look, you're going to need Dibling to take some time to get a bit better, you know, and what have you. But you're going to see people going, well, we bought him for 50 million. I expect 25 goal contributions a season. We spent big money on him, and they will forget about how young he is. You know, it's a situation with Johnson, right? Johnson had 15 goal contributions last season, so a solid return. If he was bought for 20 to 25 million, you wouldn't hear half a discourse that you hear about him. You wouldn't. People would go, 25 million for a guy who gets 15 goal contributions from the right wing position. That sounds pretty decent. You know, Dibling is going to be even younger, probably more expensive, and you will see it. And that's the issue I think we're having as Spurs fans. I think we demand a little bit too much from some of the younger players. I mean, trust me, if Mikey Moore didn't have a good game for 2 or 3 months, people would be saying, get rid of him. He's never going to be any good. We have no patience, unfortunately, as Spurs fans. And I get that you want to win the Premier League, and I get that you want to win the Champions League or the Europa League, and you want to win the FA Cup, and you want to win the League Cup. No team ever wins all trophies. We've had some treble winners, but that's not all trophies. And we have teams who are big boy teams who have dips. They do. Chelsea have had dips. Chelsea had frequent dips. You know, they'd win the title, they'd finish like 12th. But the season after, they'd go back and compete for the title. You know, Liverpool had years of mediocrity. Arsenal, mediocrity for years. Man City have fallen out of sort of the title race multiple times, and they spend hundreds of millions every year. Man United. I mean, Villa this year. It's like Villa this year. They've dipped a bit. They're still in the Champions League, and they, for me, are still having a solid season. But they were fourth last year. Forest are third. And you're going to get teams that are going to have a spike. You get teams that dip. And I think if Forest did finish in the top 4 this season, I think they'd dip next season. I would. You know, Bournemouth. Bournemouth got European football next year, Bournemouth next year with European football would not finish as high as they would this season. Because you're going to get teams that are going to bounce back. I think Amorim under Man United, they'll bounce back. I think we will bounce back, regardless of the manager, to be honest. I think we will bounce back. You know, especially if we're not in Europe, we will 100% bounce back. Evidence, last season, we finished 5th in no European football. You know? And hell, we still have an opportunity for European football this season. There's talks about how, you know, 8th, 9th, or 10th can get an extra, you know, spot in Europe. That could be the Conference League. We're still in a competition right now that can guarantee us Champions League football for next season. So, for me, if we're going to buy Dibling, are people going to be patient enough? That's really my big concern. I have no evidence as a fan base that we will be patient. No evidence. People were writing off Vicario after one game, start of last season. Turns out he's a pretty damn good goalkeeper. Andy, he gave the ball away once in this game and it went like 50 yards that way, but he gave the ball away and it's like, okay, right. So what you're expecting of Vicario is prime Gianluigi Buffon with the ability of Edison with his feet. Okay, cool. So your expectations of a goalkeeper are way off my screen because they are way too over the top. People write off Bergvall. People write off, have written off. I've seen people write off Archie Gray. I've seen people write off Odebear. Hadn't played any football. Well, write him off. Solanke didn't score for a few games. Well, that was a waste of money. You know, I see it all the time. I see it all the time. We aren't patient enough. We aren't patient enough. That's really our biggest issue as a fan base is we're not patient enough with our players. They misplace a pass. Oh. They have a shot and maybe it goes just wide. Oh. Shouldn't be shooting. Give it to someone else. I like Dibling. I don't know if he's the right guy. I think for me, I would personally want someone a little bit older. And I could be wrong here. Remember, I was wrong about Rafinha, who would be our starting right winger, who'd be fantastic. You know, that's that's where I'm wrong, and I'm happy to hands up say that I'm probably wrong about Spurs every day, to be honest. You know, but that's what makes me a fan. You know, have an opinion doesn't mean I'm right. It doesn't mean you agree with me, and I hope you don't agree with everything I say because you are also then wrong too often. And we don't need more of me. We need more people right. Okay. But no, in all seriousness on Dibling, okay. Homegrown, talented, absolutely. Again, right. Here's the other thing: is Ange going to be here next season? Because if Ange's not going to be here, right, and let's say we're Simeone and Inzaghi. Okay, it's not going to happen with Inzaghi, but it's just hypothetical to give you an idea as to why I don't always look at every single transfer rumor and go, "Well, he's going to sign." Simeone Inzaghi plays a 3-5-2. Dibling is not playing wing back. He's an out and out attacking winger. He wouldn't suit left wing back or right wing back, right? So it wouldn't suit the 3-5-2. You know, Johnson wouldn't suit the 3-5-2. I don't think. I mean, Son would only suit 3-5-2 if you're playing him up front with Solanke. And in turn, a lot of the Inter Milan, sorry, a lot of their attacks come from knockdowns from strikers. So you're asking then Solanke to do a lot of that. And if you don't have Solanke, you need to buy someone else that can do that. Hence why they have Taremi, they have Arnautovic, and they have Thuram as well as working with Lisandro Martinez. So that's the issue is you know, if you're buying, if you're getting a new manager, you have to be willing. This is the other thing with us. We have to be willing to give him multiple years. We haven't given Ange multiple years. He's not done 2 years of football, has he? So it's factually correct that he's not had multiple years. We would need to give a guy multiple years, 3 summer windows, 2 January windows, and then we'll see from there. We won't be patient enough because we've not been patient enough with other managers. We weren't patient with Mourinho, Conte, Ange, Nuno. You know, you name it, we've not been patient with them. Since Pochettino, we've not been patient with them. You know, hit the big time now, Andy, with the new LED sign. I could change colour of it. I could change colour of it as well. Hey, the pink looks nice. A little bit of yellow. Blue. We won't do red because it's not a Spurs. We'll do green. We'll do green for a bit. There you go. Hate the idea of another rebuild. You can't do it. Mr. Hindsight is always right, though. True. Because opposition will not allow the space time and they'll sit more defensively. A reason why Nottingham Forest are doing well is that they were not given the same respect as to a top 6 team. If Ange moves on, we need a manager to play similar style whilst getting rid of players that haven't performed. Dark blue, you said. There you go. Dark blue. I won't turn it red. It was just all the colours that I can show you. I could do multicolour, but strobe lighting effects and all that sort of stuff. But Dibling, I really think he's a good player. Is he right for us right now? Where I think a lot of us are quite hoping for a more regular output. Is he going to give you that? There's the issue. Spurs fans using patience. Lol, Andy, are you drunk? There's a lovely selection of rums and whiskey just to my left over there, but I haven't touched any. It's only 11:40 in the morning. It's got to be 12 o'clock before you do that, haven't you? We've been patient for long enough. Yeah, I think the idea of being patient, I think I see a lot of people go, well, I spend money in the club. I demand this. I demand that. I was actually listening to the Hotspur Hippie video. I think it was yesterday. Someone sent it to me. I can't remember who it was. Apologies. You know who you are. Got sent to me. And he was calling out content creators. And I was thinking, am I in this? Am I getting called out? Am I about to get attacked here? And I watched it. It's like a 7-minute video. I watched it and I wasn't attacked. It was lovely. But he's right. There is no patience. There is too much of a, let me say something that's going to get people talking, The club is doing the quote, rebuild. Manager is hired to oversee it. If he does a poor job, someone else will take his job. Trick is picking manager that can build on what is already here. Well, that's the thing, Mauler. Right. Like that's a really great comment, by the way. A really, really great comment. By the way, Yannick, I'm not too keen on Edin Terzic. Just a lot of, people look on the pitch, what he does. If you look at the whole picture, there's a lot of issues with him. Which I recommend check out the reason why he left Dortmund. It was a massive fallout. But Mauler, back to your comment, which I'm just going to highlight into the chat so people can see it whenever they want, right? The club is doing the rebuild. Manager is hired to oversee it. If he does a poor job, someone else will take his job. Trick is picking the manager that can build on what is already here. And this is the key thing, right? If you want Ange here, you don't want Ange here, whatever. But I see people going, Thomas Frank, okay? And I like Thomas Frank as a manager. You aren't really picking anyone that's in here in terms of Frank to Ange. You're not really picking someone who's along the same sort of lines. You're picking someone that does something quite completely different, which means, again, are we going to be patient and allow Thomas Frank multiple windows to get it right? Which means you're going to need at least 2 years of patience where, hey, you might finish 9th and it's not great. You might finish 10th and it's not great. You might finish 14th and you have an FA Cup final, right? There's going to be there's going to be situations where that could happen. Are we patient enough? The answer is no, they're not. Look on Twitter. None of those people are patient enough. They demand us to win the Champions League today, even though we're in the Europa League and you're at the quarterfinal stage. You can't win it today. But people will tell you, I demand it today. I don't have an issue with some of the managers we've been linked to. By the way, Poch, USA, lost to Panama at home yesterday, 1-0 in the 94th minute. Yikes, that's bad. And that's not me digging at Poch. That is just an awful result, especially at home. I guess we haven't seen windows that you can see their future, these and midterm squad fillers, ready-made like players like Solanke. Where there's windows to better confidence apart from one way. Look, the key thing for me is if you're going to buy some young players, you've got to buy some ready-to-go players because ready-to-go players will help those younger players to develop. As much as, playing Bergvall and playing Gray and throwing them in at the deep end, they're playing regular football, they're going to develop, great. Wouldn't it be nicer to have the Man City model? Wouldn't it be nicer to have the Liverpool model? Even the Arsenal model? You bring them in and you let them play here and there, let them develop, give them some confidence and build on it. We don't. We go, right, we bought 5 players, 4 of them are 19 and 18-year-olds. They've got to play. And it's like, could we not get a couple of players that are like 26? Nope. No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. And the answer really is, it's not, there was talk about how, we've done that before. It's not worked. It's failed and it's expensive. That's not on the fact that you're buying expensive players and it's not worked. Don't you think that's down to, are you buying the right players for the system? Which I think in the past we didn't. Tanguy Ndombele would never have, Tanguy Ndombele was bought under Pochettino. He was never going to suit Nuno, Mourinho, or Conte, in my opinion. So we were hiring managers to win now, but the players that were there did not suit that style of football, which then it took years. And that's why we had, in reality, one spike of a year under Conte, right? We finished 4th. The rest of the time, though, when you look at the end of the season, and you'll get people going, "Yeah, but we were at this point in February." It's like it's not the point. By the end of the season, we didn't do very well under those managers. I mean, no, Nuno lasted what 2 months or whatever, and it's like that's my kind of issue. So bringing in a manager, and you're not going to get every manager the same. You're not. Ange's not the same as Hertzler down at Brighton. We play similar football, Brighton and Spurs, but they're not the same players. Man City, Pep and Ange do some similar things, but do a lot of things differently. Slot, different things, some similar things, because football is a copycat game. In reality, a lot of times football is a copycat game. So with a rebuild, no matter the manager, are we going to give them that time? And I don't think we will give them that time. I don't think we will. We've not given time to, when you think about, when people talk about Thomas Frank, we didn't give time to win now managers who are the people that play that style of football that he sort of does. And again, not everyone plays the same football, but roughly the same in Conte and in Mourinho, and we chased them out of the club. Nuno, I think, is having tons of success at Forest because they spent quite a bit of money. But regardless, he's still third in the league, and you can't knock that. We chased him out after 2 months, and he won Manager of the Month in his first season. We beat Man City on his first game at Spurs. So are we going to be happy with 42% possession, the odd 1-0, 2-1 kind of vibe? Are we going to be happy with that? No. I can tell we're not going to be happy with that. I've seen it before. I've got the evidence that we're not going to be happy with that. And people will tell you, I'm happy. The issue I also find is people will tell you, I'm ready for the rebuild. Let's do that rebuild. And then things don't go that way. And it's like, sack him. Don't bring Poch back. It's like, that's not the answer. I don't think getting Poch back is the answer. I would take a look into Erdin Terzic. If we have to replace Ange, I think Iraola would be the better fit. Frank, I'm not confident. However, Ange needs tactics if he says he does have tactics. Iraola and Xavi. The club should also recruit the right players. I could be wrong, but I feel most of our signings are club signings. Ange's got wing backs rather than fullbacks, counter-attacking style wingers. Well, I mean, Porro and Udogie were here obviously before Ange, right? And Spence was as well. Spence was a Conte signing in terms of, but actually, this is a good point, Kevin. Actually, that's a fantastic comment. Spence was bought by the club. Conte did not want Jed Spence. There's an issue there. Now, don't get me wrong, there's going to be the odd signing or two where the club kind of goes, hey, we really like this guy. Can we bring him along slowly? And the manager goes, I'll work him in to get some minutes maybe, but I'm not too sure on him. But the main thing is, if we had gone after Ange players, right? If we had gone out there and we were like, we're going to sign Ange and his players, I think Werner might have been a bit of an Ange, but club signing. Because I think Ange probably went, I can get him in early doors. It's easy. I don't hate him. He's a nice guy. Maybe I think everyone has a hand in that. But if we were going after Ange players, then there's a guy sitting at Crystal Palace right now that we should have gone after. There's a guy who plays for one of the top teams in Spain who had scored in a Madrid derby and is the first Englishman to have ever scored a Madrid derby. Steve McManaman played in Madrid. Michael Owen, Jude Bellingham, David Beckham. No, this guy didn't sign him either. There's quite a few players I don't think. I mean, we didn't even do it with Conte. Conte was like, I want Bastoni. I like Gavardio. I want some of these kind of guys. And we went, good point. Clement Longley. And it was like, where did you get Clement? Where did that name come from? You sort of, Conte's looking around the room for the camera, thinking he's about to get punks, Because the club kind of goes, oh, some of those names are a bit expensive for us. Top teams, they're not, but they're a bit expensive for us. How about we get someone who is, when we look at the list of 10 players, they are, hey, we're going to get you someone that's 8th. We won't get you the last option on the list. We'll get you 2 up. And the manager goes, so the top 7 of players you didn't want because they're too expensive. The club go, yep. Deal with it. Do you want him or not? Kind of thing. And that's one of our issues as well. The problem is the players have played under multiple managers, so what styles suit these players best? I do think Ange Ball at his finest is a very, very good level of football that we have beaten big teams. I mean, we beat Man City 4-0 away from home. Man City aren't in the greatest form. Fine, you're still beating them 4-0 away from home. So I think there is a case where when it's good, but I don't think he has the squad. I don't. And if he's not got the squad, that's fine. You want him gone, okay. Are you watching this? Are you sitting there capable of saying the next guy coming in will be given the squad that he needs within 4 windows to have success? The answer is no, he won't. Therefore, we're in the same boat as we will be in about 18 months' time. Tanguy would suit any manager. Tan's player without nonsense play. Xavi's good at developing younger players to be fair and players attacking football outside this. But also, Xavi wants to spend money and he wants to spend money on wages. We don't do that. Therefore, that one of his big things would stick out like a sore thumb. Inzaghi would want us to spend money on wages. Iriola and Frank wouldn't. Hence why they'll probably be the two that we go after. Spurs have highly technical players, but not strong physically. I mean, I've seen people talking about Victor Wanyama on Twitter the last couple of days. I did a video on him 2 months ago where I said he's the player that we miss most. Because when he was grand and he was great, he was a monster for us. And it's like, I said that 2 months ago. I mean, people reposting the game that he had against City in the Champions League when he was not good and his body was starting to betray him a little bit. But his best version was a monster, Ange would have got the best out of Ndombele. Oh, goodness sake, Jazz. To be fair, I don't think any of those players were willing to come to Spurs anyway. I'm not talking about like your Camavingas or your Tchouaménis or Frenkie de Jong. I mean, can you imagine Daniel Levy hearing how much Frenkie de Jong is on per week? It's like he'd go, "Oh my God, you mean his weekly wage is his yearly wage?" We go, "No, that's his weekly wage." He goes, "I'm not paying that. I wouldn't even pay him half of that." I'm just talking about quality players. We're buying, the Vuskoviches, we're buying the Bergvals, who are so exciting talents. I really like the look of them. And you get Spurs fans, if they've not played for two games, going, what's the manager doing? Why is he not getting minutes? And it's like, you can never be happy with Spurs fans. Spurs fans can never be happy with themselves. We could win 5-0 and someone would still pick out issues. But I'm just talking about quality players. If you win the Europa League, right, this season, you've got Champions League football. People would be attracted by that. You've won a trophy. You're in the Champions League. You play in London. The player would go, what's the wages going to look like? And that is the biggest crux of the issue. It's not Spurs, and where they are in the league. It's nothing like that. Players go to Man United, who are below us in the league, because they know they're going to be compensated. That's really the big issue. I mean, think about who's up. Think about Brighton, right? I think Brighton like 6th or 7th, maybe 8th. Players would rather go to Aston Villa, who are in 9th, over Brighton, because they know they're going to be compensated. Money is the driver here in all these questions. This is their job at the end of the day. As much as we sit there and we look at this as the hobby, as something that we enjoy, this is also their job. And they've only got a finite amount of years to make the most amount of money. I don't begrudge like the Oscars who left Chelsea, who were on good money, to go to China to earn, multiple generational weeks worth of wages. It's their career at the end of the day. But money talks. And that's, I think, my big issue in all of that. Money talks, I think Maddison wants Ange sacked. I don't know if that's true, mate. Ange barely starts him. It's managing minutes more so for me on Maddison. We didn't do it last season, then we lost him for 2 odd months, Oh, that Chelsea home game. I was there as well. It was just losing for Mickey for multiple months, losing Maddison for multiple months, losing Romero for about nearly a month, losing a doggy for a game. It was like, this game could not have gone any worse, We know that he doesn't have the squad. Agree, I also feel Ange never will have the squad he wants or needs at Spurs. I mean, get me. That for me is sad. Every manager who manages your club, you should do your damnness to give him what he thinks he needs. Because if you go, I want you to get us top 4 football and I want us to try and win a cup. He goes, okay, I don't hate that idea. I like that idea, but we need to spend some money because I feel like I need to get about 5 players in. I need to get these positions. And then the owner goes, okay, so you want striker, we'll give you a striker number 1 option. He goes, brilliant. I need that. But we're going to give you some 18-year-olds. I'm going to give you 7th or 8th choice options, but we still want what we want. It's like, it's a two-way street. If you want to have that success, you must supply the manager with what he needs. And it's not about Ange. It's just across the board, across football teams. We look at top 4 as the trophy. Trophies are irrelevant to Spurs. Top 4 is everything. If you win the Europa League to get into the Champions League, great. But as long, if it's just the top 4, that's all we care about because that's where the money is. That's all we care about, unfortunately. Who in the last 3 years do you want from United in terms of who was there before the 3 years or who's been signed? I'm not sure. Tell me that and we'll go from there. I love Son, but why did Ange make him the captain? Every time we drop or lose points, he always cries. Well, a question maybe for another day, but I think that's the thing when it came to Lloris, it was like they're not vocal leaders. The leaders are, the Toby Alderweireld's, the Jan Vertonghen's, the those sort of players, even Carl Walker to a point, Our wage structure will change once we sign youth to their next contracts, which is, it's just like, but then it's the idea that we'll cash in a few of those players, Is Mikey Moore going to leave? No. But will our youth sign new contracts? They might prefer to a more ambitious club want to win things. Essentially so. Who's been signed? Well, over the last 3 years, who's been signed at Man United that I like? I like Euro. I did want Euro at Spurs, actually. I do like him. I think he, obviously, still a young player, needs time. I think Dorgu, I like Dorgu for a long time. Again, young player still needs time. Not really blown away by Onana, Casemiro. I'm trying to think of who else they Ericsson. Who the hell else have they signed in those 3 years? They've signed so many players, but who else have they signed? I guess Ronaldo you'd count in those last 3 years. I wouldn't have taken him. Again, also it depends on who we had at the time. Like for example, I wouldn't take any of their strikers because we had Harry Kane, the best striker in the world. So, yeah, I'd say Dorgu and Euro, 2 players that I quite like. I wasn't ever keen on Agate. I'm still not now. God, I can't even. Xerxes wanted Xerxes for a little while. I don't think I would. I didn't mind Xerxes. I think Xerxes is an all right player. I think he's just been given the wrong rub of the green, really. But yeah, I'd probably say Dorgu and Euro are probably the 2 that I would like, But again, Mike Moore won't be leaving. The board will never allow hot up-and-coming talent to leave. Since Erdin Zergic has an issue, I would take Fabian Hertzler, Areola, Frank in that order. That's my take if we're going to replace Ange. That's a lot of people have not said anything about Hertzler. It's weird. Brighton fans, I've seen some of them are like, oh, Hertzler's the guy. And I see some of them going, oh, I miss De Zerbi. And it's quite weird, really, in the whole situation. I think Hertzler's a good manager. But, all I'm going to say is he plays a lot. His football style, they play a lot like Spurs and Bournemouth, by the way. So, again, young manager, if form was to dip, would you be happy? Euro for 6 minutes is a ridiculous fee. Dorgu wasn't coming to sit on the bench behind a doggy. I think get out of that mindset of players are coming to sit on the bench. That's another issue. We should have 2 players in every single position of competency that you rotate. That for me is a big issue. People look at it as you're number 2, you're number 1. You will play when he needs to rest. It's like, no, 2 guys, 1 and 1A, rotate. If Ange's so bad, why players still support him? Well, it's a good question. It's a good question. Why do some of the players still support him? There's been very vocal players. I think Tell supports him. I think Spence supports him. Romero, Vicario, Mickey. I think a lot of them still support him. It does say a lot. Obviously, we don't see behind closed doors, so I can't comment too much, but it does say a lot about him, you know. If anything, we need huge upgrades on squad depth. Because we see that when we go to the bench, a lot of time it drops off. We need just competent players across every position. That I can look at a Heung-Min Son and go, I'm going to play Sonny against Bournemouth this weekend. So Odebear in the week against who do we play in the Europa League? AZ Alkmaar. We play AZ Alkmaar in the league phase, right? I'm just talking if we're in the Europa League, right? Cool. Odebear's playing that game, right? And you rotate. That's the idea. I'm not looking at it as a Son, next guy. I'm looking at it as Son, next guy. Or Son, or next guy, and then Son. And it's together on the same level. If you look at Liverpool, for example, this is a great one. People look at Salah. Salah's fantastic, right? If you look at Diaz, it's Diaz and Gakpo, both really solid players, really good players. And I'd probably say Gakpo is probably a little bit ahead of Diaz, but there isn't night and day between them. Different games call for different players. I mean, Jota's been playing up front, and you got Nunez. I've seen a lot of Liverpool fans saying, "Why isn't Nunez starting more at the moment?" So it matters player to player. That's why it's good to have different options. I think we have. I mean, it's been doing my absolute head in. He's dropped Spence. How dare he drop Spence? It's like, do you want Spence to play 3 times a week? Okay, let's just keep running our players into the ground to injure them. Yeah, but Andy, we don't play for 2 weeks. It's like, yeah, but he has played 3 games in 11 days. How about we rotate them? There's an attitude issue within the fan base that if he's not injured, he should start every single game. Son is 32. You're asking him to play 4 games in like 11 days. Well, Romero, why was Romero brought off? It's like he's missed like 3 or 4 months this season. For me, I would just rather try and keep him fit. He played 70 minutes. We were great for that 70 minutes defensively. Didn't have any issues. But he's also played 70 minutes the week before and 90 minutes in the week. We need to try and keep him fit. The issue is we didn't have someone to bring off the bench, and therefore there's your issue. The rotational pieces aren't there. I mean, it doesn't help that Radu's out injured. It doesn't help that Big Kev's out injured. Maybe it will help when after the international break, Big Kev's back, and I'm buzzing to have him back. But you see what I mean? That's what we want. But players don't want to be in a starting rotation. If players don't want to fight for a spot, they're just as much of an issue as any tactics you can possibly imagine. I want players to fight for their spot every single week. There's an attitude issue in that. I'm not going to play 60 games this season. Oh, I'm not happy about that. It's like, I wouldn't want to play 60 games in this season. Are you joking? No way would I wouldn't want to do that. I'd rather play 45 or 40 even, have top quality performances, because guess what? The 20 games, if I'm knackered, the club are going to go, well, we're not going to give you a big bumper new deal because, look, your performances for 2/3 of the season, for a third of the season was crap. You go, but what about the other 2/3 ago? But it's over a course of a thing. Top quality players, think about Bayern Munich. They rotate their winger options. You've got Sane, Gnabry, and Coman and Elise. If you think about Barcelona, I got Ferran Torres. They got, even the midfield. The midfield, they rotate all the time, their midfield options. Chelsea rotate their options. City rotate their options. Liverpool quite often rotating their options. We, for some reason, just go, player fit, run into ground. And that's a big issue. Everyone seems to forget, what do you think about Skov Olsen for the right wing option? Don't know enough about him, so I can't comment, unfortunately, mate. Everyone seems to forget what happened to Dele Alli. He was playing every single match and had the biggest fall-off in history because we decided to play him for over 20,000 minutes before he had reached 24. Well, there was also things going on with Dele in his own personal life, which I'm not going to comment on. It's not my place to. But again, one of Poch's big issues is that when we were playing, 2 or 3 games a week, we didn't really have the squad to rotate. Harry Redknapp ran Bale and Modric into the ground by March of every season because we didn't have the squad to rotate. Because I don't think the owners really truly liked Harry. But there's the issue. And we don't seem to ever want to learn from it. 6 games, that's an extreme example. Just because they want to be a starter doesn't mean they aren't busting a gut. You're missing my point completely. Sorry, mate. I would also like our next manager to not speak English fluently or use a translator because his press conferences and interviews won't be overanalyzed. Well, that was the thing about Poch, wasn't it? At Southampton, had a translator, and it was like a big thing that was like, but if you're joining Spurs, you're not allowed to use a translator anymore. Never really got that. But then again, it's like, if I speak and not a translator, the translator won't, because maybe I've broken English. You might overanalyze it because I've got broken English. You're just making up stories. So Diaz leaving Liverpool, is he? Very nice, very nice, very nice. Barcelona, Liverpool, City, a destination club. Tottenham isn't that at the moment. There we go. Need to fix that before we do anything else, which means pay more on wages. What's worse, giving us 2 full seasons or starting another rebuild? I mean, for me, depends on the manager first and foremost. Because if it's just, pick a name out of the hat, that's the next manager for next season, then I'm not interested in that. If there is a proven manager, I'm not needing them to have won 4 million trophies. I'm not needing that, nor should we need that. I want someone that plays attacking football similar to Ange. So therefore, a rebuild wouldn't be as drastic if you get in a pragmatic manager. But also the key thing is in here, are you going to support the manager? Evidence says no. People go, but they spent this much money on transfer fees. It's like, you're looking at a small slither of the pie. Small slither of the pie. Get the rest of the pie out. Go on, get out of the fridge. Let's have a look at it. See these issues? Haven't fixed those issues with other managers. Managers would have had loads of success. Didn't have it, didn't want to do it. You sat Mourinho before a cup final. If you're not sure why we're not trying to win things, just look at that. They sacked him because if they didn't and he won it, he was going to be costing the club lots of money to sack. But he'd have won more trophies than some of your favourite Spurs managers. What have I missed? Why a doggy form has been poor. I do think with a doggy, big quad surgery, no preseason. And then I think it is because we've decided, I don't know why, we just hate the idea of signing a left back. I don't really understand it. Well, let's run him into the ground because we've got no other left back. And then he gets injured. So he never truly gets up to speed. I think next season he'll be better. I do. I've seen enough to think he should be better. But let's go from there. I don't get the point you're trying to make. No manager would have dealt with our injuries any better than what Ange did. Yeah, this idea that if we had a different manager, we'd be 5th right now in the league. It's like, okay. All right, buddy. You think what you want to think. It's a hard question. I was definitely an Ange in person. Now I don't know. You're a tweener. You're like me, a tweener. You back the club and you back the manager because you want to have success. But if success isn't to come, there needs to be a conversation. There does. Doesn't matter if you're the most staunch Ange in or Ange out guy, then there will need to be a conversation. Now, if he wins the Europa League, that conversation isn't as loud as you think it should be. You'll get people that still hate Ange who will go, yeah, we won the Europa League, but we finished 13th in the league. It's like, just checking on next season. Are we in the Champions League? Oh, we are. Okay. And we won a trophy. Yeah. Okay. What am I missing? If we win the Europa League, I'm back to being completely Ange in, hands down, fighting on the front lines on it. Because he would have won not only a trophy, he'd won a European trophy. As much as Harry twerks about how, I could come back and be the Spurs manager, Harry didn't do that. Harry didn't win any trophies. Had Modric, had Bale, Scotty Parker, and Aaron Lennon. Had some good players, old Harry. Poch didn't win any of the trophies like that. Mourinho, even old Conte. None of them won those trophies. So it's I'm just saying, Be prepared to have that conversation in all formats. Don't have that conversation only because we didn't win anything. If you win the Europa League, have the conversation and put some respect on him because he's done something no other manager's been able to do for a long time. On transfer fees, we've spent 1.3 million less than City over the last 10 years. On wages, we're terrible. We're the same as Palace. We're a Palace in the league. If that's true, Steve, obviously, without checking, I'm going to take your word as gospel on this. If that's true, Palace are what? 1 or 2 places above us in the league? If you're paying mid-table fees, then you should expect mid-table results. Just saying. You should never look at Chelsea's and City's and Liverpool's and Arsenal's because, well, they pay more on wages than we do. I mean, Arsenal spend like an extra 100 million on wages a year. Why do you think players really would rather go to Arsenal? They've not won anything for a few years. They're not exactly a big cup-winning trophy team. I think they've won 1 trophy under Arteta, or if you want to count the Community Shield, 2. They spent nearly £1 billion. But they pay the wages. Players want to go there because they pay the wages. They don't play at a nicer stadium than Spurs. They don't have nicer training ground facilities. Players want money. Simple as that. I think people would rather go to Villa over Spurs right now. Birmingham, probably not a nicer city as London, right? The stadium's not as nice. The training ground's not as nice. But Villa are willing to spend money on those wages. Newcastle, the exact same. They're willing to spend money on those wages. We aren't. So I'll keep repeating. That is one of the Spurs' biggest issues. It's not just Ange. It's not just injuries. It's not just maybe underperforming players. It's also, well, if you want players who are of a better ilk, I'm not saying the world's best. I'm just saying of a better ilk, you've got to be willing to spend money on their wages. The only time we're willing to spend money on the wages is because we want to keep the really good players that we have and trap them at Spurs. Try to do it at Harry Kane. We'll give you 400 grand a week, whatever it was. It was like, yeah, because you're trying to trap him. You don't want to try and sell him and have to replace him because that costs money. I'll just trap him. Christian Romero, sign a new contract, Romero, or we're selling you. You're trying to trap him. Welcome to World of Spurs. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me today. There's a few colours to see you on the way out. I won't be doing the red one, don't worry. There you go. We're going to finish on baby blue or cyan for some people. Thanks so much for watching me this morning/afternoon. Go enjoy the rest of your days, your afternoons, evenings, mornings, wherever you're in the world. And I'll speak to you all very soon to talk a lot more about Spurs. Take care, everyone. Peace.